recent film I watched last weekend was We Buried the Dead, a new film from Australian director Zak Hilditch. It's the story of a disaster that's befallen the island of Tasmania, of course, off the South Australian coast. An American electromagnetic weapon was accidentally detonated off the coast of the island and killed everything on the island with a nervous system, including its entire human population. With international diplomatic chaos going on and the American government on the verge of being dragged out of office by a raging population, cleanup operations have to be undertaken. So the Australian military has put out an international call for volunteers to go house to house, bringing out and identifying bodies and giving them over to the army, who will put them in mass graves. And one of the people who's volunteered is Ava, an American physiotherapist, who's travelled to Devonport on the island's north coast in the hope of eventually tracking down and locating the body of her husband, who was on the island as part of a business trip. She starts working with her partner, who is a rough and somewhat uncouth biker type, who has very little emotional engagement with the task of dragging dead bodies, often of children, out into the street, working out who they are, and then consigning them to be thrown in mass graves. But also, the army informed the volunteers that because of the unknown effects of this electromagnetic weapon, some people seem to be coming back online. And although they are apparently passive and benign, if anyone finds anyone like that, they are to inform the army immediately so they can be dealt with. So Eva and her partner Clay wind up going rogue and travelling across country to find the what happened to her husband. And the film develops into less of a horror movie, something less of a zombie movie, but more a very sad, melancholy drama. Ava is torn by her relationship with her husband, that there was infidelity, they were trying for a child and it didn't work out. But she still wants to know what happened to him. She wants to know if he could possibly still be alive. If he is dead, maybe he's come back to life. Why are people coming back to life? No one ever really knows. There's deliberately a lot of ambiguity and unanswered questions in the movie. Because people just don't know. There are ideas and theories thrown out. I think it's a shame that about halfway through the film lapses into fairly standard zombie movie tropes. The zombies themselves are never really a threat. It's the people in this environment. It's the other volunteers are just people who work. Even the Australian military is actually painted in a relatively sympathetic light. They're just people trying to do their job and just trying to keep the situation under control so that all of this can be dealt with. And the volunteers are shown to be treated well, kept in a very comfortable hotel, but told very firmly not to leave. Well, also it's shown that volunteers can simply just stop. They can just tell a military officer, I'm done, I can't cope with this, I want to go home. And they can just go back to the hotel and get on the first flight out. And it's fine. So the environment I thought was really interesting and different. And I just thought it was a shame that it was then going back into these familiar tropes. But then towards the end of the film, it steers away again and kind of derails itself and moves back to the more character-based, slower drama of how do people react to this kind of environment? How do people behave in this kind of situation? It's an engaging movie. I liked it quite a bit, despite its flaws. I thought that Daisy Ridley in the lead role, no idea why she was American. I thought she was good. I think there's meant to be some kind of development of other characters having some animus towards her because she's American, because she's in the country that is responsible for this catastrophe, even though Americans at home are on the verge of dragging the president out of the White House in protest at what's happened. Um, Brenton Thwaites says Clay, I think, is an interesting character. We find out, I think, almost nothing about him. Why he's quite rude and awkward and difficult, and he gradually warms to Ayla and is just a bit nicer to her and a bit more understanding. The main reason he goes with her is because he's found a really nice bike he wants to try out, and obviously looting is against is out of the question, particularly getting a bike out of the country. But it's an intriguing and engaging idea. I think Hilditch certainly deserves credit for coming up with a fresh take on the zombie story that allows a much more gentler, character-based take on the story. There isn't a threat of global catastrophe and global annihilation. Um, it's um, it's very much an Australian 28 Days Later, but even much more benign. Um, and for all its flaws,